Google is reportedly planning to get back into China. The Intercept reports that Google is planning to launch a search app that would block sensitive websites and search terms to comply with Chinese government censorship. And it wouldn't be the first time either. In 2006, Google launched a Chinese language version in China, Google.cn. It did censor results, but also flagged when information was removed. Now, everything was going pretty well until January 2010, when the company accused Chinese hackers of targeting Google and more than 20 other Western companies. Beijing denied it. But 2 months later, Google made good on its threat to leave. It started routing Chinese users to an uncensored version based here in Hong Kong, which is outside the so-called Great Firewall. 5 years later, Google's parent company, Alphabet, changed its motto from "Don't be evil" to "Do the right thing." Now, from a business perspective, getting back into China does seem like the right thing to do, but is it really the right thing ethically? Joining me now, Lokman Tsui, former head of free expression for Asia and the Pacific at Google. He is now the assistant professor at the School of Journalism Communication at the Chinese University of Hong Kong, and he joins me now. Lokman, good to see you. First, want to get your gut reaction to these reports that Google is building this censored search engine for China. Are you surprised by this at all?
So thank you for having me on the show, Kristie. I am what they say, shocked but not surprised. Google has always been wanting to have more business in China. Recently, there was the acquisition of JD.com. They've been building and trying to build a research capacity for artificial intelligence in China. But what is surprising is that this is not e-commerce or artificial. This is search, right? This is the crown jewel of Google. And sort of to give up the crown jewel to Beijing is somewhat surprising, including that the plans for doing so are fairly far developed already.
And does Google want to go back into China because it's all about the bottom line, and also has the management and the ethos of the company changed dramatically as well?
So why would Google want to do this, right? And the sort of the cynical view would be to, they're doing it for the dollars. And that is certainly not untrue, but it isn't the whole truth. You know, the possibility is that they are interested in artificial intelligence and developing that, and there's lots going on in China. But the Sundar Pichai, Mr. Sundar Pichai, he has been on record saying we want to be in China and we want to serve Chinese users. And so he's always been sort of upfront and clear and honest about that. But with all respect to Mr. Pichai, by being in China, you're not going to be serving the Chinese users. What you will end up doing is you're going to be serving the Chinese government. So that's not a good thing.
Yeah, and if the reports are indeed true, Google plans to go back into China to serve the Chinese government, bowing to Chinese censorship. What would this mean for internet freedom in general?
It would be a terrible idea, if you ask me. As I said earlier, this is not just any company with any product going back to, you know, like sort of submitting itself to the Chinese government. This is Google that we're talking about, and it's search that we're talking about. And so it has a great symbolic value. And it would be a moral victory for Beijing if Google were to go back with a search app that is neutered, that is crippled with censorship, and it would legitimate and validate a lot of what Beijing has been trying to do in the past decades to tell us that this internet censorship is normal. It is not normal. It's not, you know, what Google should be doing.
Yeah, it would be a huge propaganda victory for China if Google decides to do this. And going back in time, 8 years ago, 2010, that's when Google chose to exit China and leave its censored search engine. Now, according to Intercept, other sources, Google is ready to go back. But the censorship regime today in China is very different from 8 years ago, isn't it?
Yeah, so if Google was saying, you know, this is a very challenging environment 8 years ago, and we need to leave because we cannot protect our users and we need to censor too much, it's only gotten much exponentially worse in the last 8 years. And so one thing, you know, like, it's important for Google, obviously, to make money because they're a for-profit company, but it's equally, if not more important, for Google as a company to protect its users and to be the best company they can be. And so I don't see how they can, first of all, I don't see how they can protect their users by going into China, because in the Chinese environment, as of today, the legal environment, they would probably be required to have service inside China, meaning law enforcement would have easy access to the service and the user data that they collect. It's an app on a mobile phone as opposed to a desktop, sort of web app. And so on a phone, you can collect a lot more data as well. So there's a lot more at risk for users as well. And in China right now, you also have the real name system that requires you to link up any account with a passport number or any kind of real identity. So you cannot also, there's no anonymity there as well. And so it's a much more challenging environment for Google to operate in. And if it cares about its users, which it should be, because that's really, if you care about the bottom line, then that's really important as well. And I don't see how they can do that today by going back into China.
Got it. Lokman, thank you so much for joining me and to just lay out not just your thoughts on these reports, but also the potential risks for users of such a service in China. Lokman Tsui of Chinese University of Hong Kong, former Google employee, head of freedom of expression in Asia for Google. Lokman, thank you so much and take care.